rest of the day here.
Okay, so now we're at Without.
Now we are at Carmel Valley Ranch.
Let's stop.
Our next stop is Carmel Valley Ranch.
Bars in this.
No, the shuttle took us.
You want to see the observation? So welcome. You want to see the bee up close? So there's a piece of plexiglass between.
He's got stung before, so he's a little worried.
You can't get stung here because they're on the other side of the glass. This is the outside of the hive, so this is where they're going to put their nectar and their honey and their pollen. And then you can see the frames from this side. She likes her babies to be nice and safe and secure and insulated.
Do you see bees inside?
I can't have them fly from the from the inside out, so I'm gonna have them fly from the outside in. You wanna see them on the other side?
I recommend slow-mo for this one.
Okay.
Alright, take care.
Alright, thank you.
Oh no,
What happened?
that's
They might land on my head, but they're not out to hurt me. About twice as close.
Okay.
Yeah, they're working. So in the entrance, you will see, oftentimes you'll see guard bees. I call them the bouncer bees. They like to make sure that if you're coming into the club that you're a member or you're VIP. Now sometimes they'll let a bee ring. Otherwise, usually the bouncers will take care of her. Also, sometimes they'll try to get, or yellow jackets will try to get in there. And yellow jackets and eat the babies. So
Oh.
they're pretty ruthless.
They don't try to.
Yellow jackets. A robust hive like this is pretty well.
And how do you collect the honey? Is it from inside? You don't collect from here?
I'll show you three, and then the subsequent chambers above are usually for honey. And they're usually a little bit shorter to accommodate the beekeeper because honey is really heavy. So each frame is probably 6-7 pounds
Wow.
when it's full of honey, and you have 10 of them, so it adds up quick. The bees are interested in it, and they weren't. They were not at all interested. Usually doing damage.
squish.
I'm sorry?
Does it
Squished?
have to feel squished?
Yeah, I'm very careful to try not to squish them. It does happen occasionally. But that's what practice. She smells like Laffy Taffy. Like banana flavored Laffy Taffy. And when a bee smells that banana flavored Laffy Taffy, they go bananas. When they smell bananas, they go bananas. So I got some different infusions here. This one is lemon peel. And this one is a spring harvest. Do you guys like spicy things? To it. So that's rosemary.
I like spicy.
You don't?
I do a bit.
A little bit. Well, you're welcome to sample some spice.
What's that?
That is lavender.
Oh, okay.
Lavender, rosemary. This one's the spice honey. That's one of our most popular ones. And then this one is a fall harvest. So those are our main, I guess, course of different flavors. So go for it. Give it a couple. One stick per taste.
No double dipping.
Yep.
You can get as much as you want.
So this one is the fall
Stop
harvest. Right?
getting so warm. These are coming. Twist it. You can twist it.
Oh.
Eat it.
Boo-boo signature. Boo-boo.
That's lemon.
Lemon.
Roll it. Roll it.
Tell us in the camera that
Spin
you're
it,
trying.
spin
I'm
it.
trying the lemon. Tell the
So which
camera,
one did
Boo-boo.
you do? This
I
one?
did that.
Lemon.
Roll this one.
Yeah, this one's rosemary.
Alright, Boo-boo, tell the camera I'm trying the lemon. And go.
I'm trying.
And go.
I'm trying the lemon. Okay, I'm gonna try the lemon.
Twist it like that.
Close this.
Got any favorites yet?
Second.
We're just on our second.
It's finally warming up, so the honey's turning back to a liquid. For a long time, it was crystallized.
Is it?
That I can do is preventing the bees from leaving for good. They could all leave that box if they want. They're there voluntarily.
Right.
So if I'm a good beekeeper and I maintain the hive really well, the bees will stay there and they'll overproduce plenty of extra honey. And so I'll only harvest what they don't need. The rest I leave in there for them to survive the winter.
Okay.
Oh, no.
This particular species of
I got
honeybee
honey
just
on my
produces like crazy because they don't know. And actually it helps them when I harvest a little bit of that overproduction, because otherwise they actually have to heat up that entire amount of honey all winter, otherwise it crystallizes. It gives them all that extra volume to heat up. So if I scale it down and leave them one box of honey for themselves and then check on them, you know, on the nicer days throughout the winter.
So that's like their food for the winter.
They're preppers. They think ahead. They make sure that they have enough. We'll have a little hose over there if you want to rinse off.
Yeah, I
Rinse
got
off.
honey on my
Yeah.
shirt. So.
Because the bee is gonna smell you.
Yep. You're gonna be Mr. Popular over there. The bee when she stings,
Well, I have. They die.
she dies. That's right. So that's the last thing she wants to do is sting you, because that means she'll give up her life. But bees don't have an ego. They'll do anything to support their hive. So, do you know how much honey a entire lifetime? Take a stab at it. Take a guess. How much honey can one bee make?
Take a guess.
Okay, half a gallon?
Wow, that's generous. Actually, a honeybee can make 1/12 of 1 teaspoon of honey in her entire
only?
life.
That's it?
One drop.
Well,
Enough to fill up one cell. So I hope you enjoy 4 to 6 weeks. So in that 4 to 6 weeks, she'll make enough honey to fill up one cell. And she'll gather a lot of...
where is the queen bee? Are you able to see it?
Well, it's kind of like Where's Waldo? She's in there, but you just got to really study it close. But usually, if you see the queen, she's going to be in the center 4 frames or so.
And is she a lot bigger?
Not a lot. So I have a couple of illustrations. Got to wash up after work.
They don't sting you for the stickiness.
No. Yep. 95.
95 degrees.
On the inside
It's
there.
really warm.
So next I'm going to put producing a lot of honey. But this is a regular worker bee like the ones you see in there. And then this is the queen bee in comparison. Now, they're not always bright orange like that. They could be black. They could be very similar markings. Often vary quite a bit.
And you can tell because of the size.
Yep. And the behaviors too. So a lot of times when I'm looking for the queen, I'll pull a frame out. And the queen, she'll be moving around and she'll have an entourage of worker bees that tend to all her needs. They take care of her. The queen, when she stings you, it's back to business as usual. She can sting as many times as she wants because she doesn't have a barb on her stinger. Also, she could live 5, sometimes 6 years.
Wow.
So the queen. Okay, so the
She
queen.
can outlive
So
her
the queen
offspring.
can sting people for fun.
Usually the reason why a queen stings is because in the spring months, the worker bees will create a lot of princess bees. And the first one to hatch will go around and sting her sisters to death.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's pretty ruthless. An egg starts starts maturing, and the egg is fed specifically this substance called royal jelly. Royal jelly is a protein that is secreted from between the head and the thorax of the bee.
You can buy that as a supplement.
Yeah. Yeah, the scientists are really studying it because it activates.
Oh.
And she'll hatch a lot earlier too, so she'll hatch about 10 days, or no, something like that.
But each hive can.
Even longer than that?
Mm-mm.
What's a drone?
Less than a year. This is a drone, it's a male bee. The male bee will live about 6 months if he's lucky.
Oh, I didn't realize. Okay.
So yeah, all the work, you know how to tell the difference between a male?
Are females.
All the bees that are productive are females.
Oh.
So the drone is missing a chromosome. Doesn't know how to clean himself or take care of himself or feed himself. The worker bees, not only do they tend to the queen, but they also tend to the drones. They're like king bees.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. So then his life is over. His mission is complete.
So he can only mate once.
Once. Yep. And
Why does he die?
the princess bee will mate with about 10 to 20 different drones. She usually flies really high up to a high point, and she gets the most strongest drones, and she'll mate with those ones. And then after that, she'll be done. Princess will never have to mate again, just one time in her life. So gets it out of her system early. Then she will fly back to the hive, and the old queen will find a new place to live.
So how come I got stuck?
This is a queen cell. So you see how these are standard cells here? This is how much bigger the queen cell is, and it's all full of royal jelly. This one's about to hatch. Once it hatches, the old queen is going to fly off, land on a branch, and it'll look like that. That's a swarm. So I caught one of those today, right here at the ranch. Yep, I caught a swarm of bees like that. Mm-hmm. Pretty much what you got to do is get those bees to go into a box, and then you got to transfer that box into a beehive, and then you're good. Eggs in all these cells, and then that was one day, and then the next day she did these cells, and so these ones already hatched, and these ones will hatch within the next day or two.
What a job.
Yeah. So the queen excretes about 165 different types of smells. They call them pheromones. The productivity and the behavior of the colony. So some of my beehives are very docile, they're very mellow, and some of the hives are a little bit more uppity, they're a little bit more responsive to people walking by, and they also produce a little bit more honey because of that increase in energy. It's not a honeybee, but it's the largest bee.
Is it really that big?
It's that big compared to a worker bee. It's a little bit smaller than that, but it's still a gigantic
huge.
bee.
Right.
Pretty cool, huh?
5 times the size.
You know, honeybees eat honey, and then they process it in their stomach, and it's actually like a type of alcohol. And then they'll squeeze wax out of these glands on their
That's
abdomen.
Like their sweat.
Yeah, and then
Kind of.
from that they'll collect it, and they'll manipulate it with their front legs, their mandibles, and their antenna. And they use their antenna like little yardsticks, and that's how they get the pattern, the hexagonal pattern. Oh, we have my own. This is all time. So these bees are producing thyme honey. Once a bee decides to land on a thyme flower, she's not going to go over here to onions. She's not going to go to rosemary. She's going to stay on thyme for her entire trip foraging.
I've never seen onion flowers.
Yeah, real pretty.
To make sure that these thyme honey.
Strictly on thyme is to put them in a monoculture of thyme. So you'd surround a big field of thyme. And then you'd be, 90-something% sure that it's pure thyme honey, but it'll never be perfectly pure because they could fly up to 2 miles. They fly all the way like real red, colorful floor mat over here. Yeah, usually there's a lot of bee cliffs. Let's check the mustard. Couple. No. So you have to pay attention when you see a bee. She'll fly up to a flower and she'll stick with the same type she's on. So if it's on rosemary, she's going to stick with rosemary. Mustard, she'll stay with mustard. That's called floral fidelity, or loyalty to the flower. But she'll buzz up to a flower and she'll look at it, and if she doesn't, and you see a bee?
Oh yeah, there's one there.
Yeah, those are some native pollinators.
They're chasing it.
Yeah. So with the honeybee, she has little hairs on her back, and when she buzzes her wings, she buzzes them so quickly that it builds up a static charge. So, have you ever rubbed a balloon on your head and watched your hair stand up?
Static.
It's from the static. How about shock the doorknob when you walk across the carpet? Oh yeah. So that's kind of what a honeybee does when she's flying through the air. The flower itself has roots that grow into the earth. So the flower is negative charge. Bee is positive or static charge, flower is negative charge. And when a bee lands on a flower, they neutralize each other out. That charge is neutralized both ways, the flower and the bee. So then when she buzzes off and flies to another plant, she can see it in her own spectrum. She can see if it's been landed on. And if it has, then she'll skip it. So you'll see a bee buzz up and look at different flowers until she finds one that hasn't been used. Then she'll land on that one. So that makes it so that bees don't waste their time landing on flowers that have already been used. And by the time the flower recharges with nectar and grows new pollen, it'll reestablish that negative charge, and then the next bee will land on it again. So that's a lot of the reason why farmers like using honeybees to pollinate, because not only will they stay on your orchard or on your berries or whatever you're farming, but they'll know which flowers have been landed on. They won't waste their time. Even possibly triple your yield. So you already have to water and tend to your orchards and stuff, so you might as well double your yield. People have their bees land on medicinal plants like manuka and some other types of medicinal plants where the honey actually takes that medicinal characteristic with it. Honeybees there are in North America? Zero.
What?
Zero. Strain, which is found in Africa and Asia. They're found in Europe and they're found in Siberia, but they're not found in North America or South America.
Oh wow.
Very low productivity. Really struggled to get a foothold. They lost a lot of people from starvation. So it started out with about 200 colonists, and only about 30 survived the first winter. Because they brought their crops and they brought their seeds to grow crops.
Okay.
They didn't have enough seeds. Like that.
Oh.
So I don't know who had it worse, whether it was the bees. This is a kid's suit. What do we got here? Junior? You're a junior?
Put it on.
No. It's like a
This one's yours. Yeah, it's just a pullover, super basic. So you put your pants on, and then your jacket.
You know what? I take this off. You can do it. Just like a couple of those. You want to do pants first? Huh? Pants is super easy. Here you go.
For the adults, should probably find you the next size down here.
Size small.
Yeah. One size.
That's okay. You're protected, right?
Is there an official name for these suits?
Beekeeper suit.
Okay.
I've seen them on Amazon. This way your pants won't fall off. You know what reminds me of?
Bear's all up out of the way, that's good. Yeah, go get that Velcro. These loops go around your thumb on each side.
So you're good. Okay, go to Gaga. Go to Gaga.
And then when you put this covering on, since you have your thumb through that thumb loop, it won't hike your glove up. There you go. Now if a bee finds its way all the way through that, I'll write it down in my journal. This one.
Smelly, go stand next to Gaga.
I'll help you with your first one, okay? So this is going to go on this. Sometimes they're a little bit loose fitting, but you work your fingers in there. You're not going to need a whole lot of. Arrgh. It's like a tree plants its roots. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Now you look ready.
Now we're doing a bee's life at Carmel Valley Ranch.
Alright, let me get a picture of you guys. Thumbs up, boys.
I can't.
Alright, cool. Thank you.
So a honeybee can smell 50 times better than a dog. So what this is going to do is it's going to mask the smell of the queen's pheromones. And it's going to let me temporarily take control of the hive. It also sort of, it mimics a forest fire. So when bees smell this, they're going to gorge themselves on nectar and on honey. So just in case they got, here you go, bud. Every so often, give that bellows a squeeze, would you? There you go. Now with our smoke and our hive tools, we're going to approach the hives very calmly. We're going to think positive thoughts. Then we're going to go experience the bees up close, okay? Everybody ready?
Uh-oh, he dropped his little,
Oh, that's okay. Just pick it up. on over here to the second hive. I call this one Hive 2. Now come on over here with the smoker. And this is the front door. So this is where the bees fly in and out. They're guard bees. So what I want you to do is go over here and give them a nice strong puff of smoke right by the front door. Right up close.
You're fine. You're wearing this.
There you go. You're brave. There you go. Let the smoke protect you. There you go. But it's got to blow onto the bees, okay?
Blow on the bees. Uh-oh.
Oh. There you go.
Oh.
That's good. Hold it up straight. What we're going to do is we're going to come right up close.
Uh-oh.
Oh, that's okay. There you go. That's pretty good. Let me borrow this. I'm going to fix it for you, okay? There we go. That won't fall off.
Let's try again, Boop.
Try again. There you go. That's it right there.
Closer. Go, one more time. Closer.
Good job. So I'm going to ask you to do the same thing but up high, okay? Because this top portion is the one that's going to get open. So come on over with those hive tools. And I want you to easily, gently wedge that one right in the corner here. Nope, down here. Right there. Now you give them a puff of smoke right in through that top crack right here. There you go. Whoop. Across the top. A little higher. There you go. That's it. Now what you can do, you see how it has a hook? You can hang it right on the edge. So just hang that hook right here. Almost. It's the same hook, but over here. So I'm going to give them a little gas and a little bit of smoke, and I just hang them there. And so what that did is I wanted to drive the bees down to these lower chambers so that when I pull frames out, I don't accidentally smash bees, okay? Can I borrow that? So you can use this cantilever here. And you set that on the frame, and then you can pry with it. It might. If it does, I'll let you know. That first box, or that first frame. Shake them off, see how they're dealing with it. They're not too upset yet. Now.
Hey, one is on your shirt.
Yeah? I'm not too scared. Yeah. If she wanted to, she could sting.
But that's so unlocked. Then what is there be next time when it's
She thought that she was defending her hive. So see that? That's the honey frame. You want to hold it?
Yeah. Then
Set the tool on the top of the hive, on the corner.
I like how he does the other one.
Yep, that's fine. Just like that's fine.
Wait,
There you go. Now you hold the frame very gently from the sides like I'm holding it, okay? And just be very careful not to accidentally smash bees. But you can just let those perches rest right on top of your fingers like that. Just like that. There you go. Perfect. And that's all full of honey. Feel how heavy that is?
Is it on both sides?
Yep. If it turn around, so this up that flat. Turn once maybe this way. Slowly turn it back. Turn. Yeah. You want to put it in here? Cool.
Would you like to hold one too? No? You're cool off of that? Okay.
Look at Mama. I can
Go hold the super book?
No. He might drop it though.
You have the suit on, you're fine.
I'll be the one that gets punished.
Look at him. Can I put it down?
Let's go ahead and pass it on over to me. I'll tell you when I got it. Okay, I got it. Just pull your hands straight apart. There you go. So these are all workers for the most part, and they're just loading this up with honey so you can see.
Even this one's huge.
All this is cap. Yeah, that's a drone.
Oh, that's a drone.
But all this is just about ready to be finished.
This is a drone. This is a drone.
And I'll show you this drone. You can just grab him by the wings. There's nothing you can do about it because he does not have a stinger. So I just grab him by a wing. That's a drone bee.
I want to flip it.
That's still there. You want one too?
Here, someone get it.
And the workers don't
Should
defend
someone
the drone.
get it?
Not so much.
Yeah, not so much.
Should someone
Where's
get
their
it?
stingers? How come I don't see it?
Drones don't have stingers.
All the bees have retractable stingers except for drones. They don't even have a stinger.
I didn't know they're retractable stingers.
Yeah, well, once they sting something, it stays out because it has a barb on it. But the stinger actually lives inside the bee. You don't see it visually. Pretty cool, huh? Did you want to hold it?
Sure.
Very gently on the sides. There you go. Perfect.
Right down the other side. Back line. I'll just extract the photo later.
You want to get a group picture?
Sure, that'd be great.
Well, maybe he can hold the camera for you. Honey that you guys sell are from here?
Sometimes there's honey at the table, and that's not from here yet.
Okay.
But it's kind of a seasonal thing. So right now the bees are in honey production. So we'll see a little bit of honey in a couple months. Bees are getting a little frustrated because this is the second time I've visited their hive today. And so for the most part, they're indifferent to me, but the thing is, if I accidentally smash them, they'll remember me.
Oh,
It's because they can recognize your face.
really?
Yeah.
Even if you wear this mask?
Mm-hmm. They know me. They can smell me. They know my movements. They know my face.
That's amazing.
So usually it's a good thing because I'm a decent beekeeper, but sometimes if I make too many mistakes, they'll remember me, and it'll take a good month or so before they mellow out and forgive me for my sins. Pretty much.
Because you're waiting for the workers to die off.
Exactly.
The next batch.
Yep.
Now, will it be better to come here at nighttime when they're sleeping, or do they?
Hey, a bee
Anytime a honeybee is vulnerable, she's gonna defend her colony more ferociously. So at nighttime, it's cold, they can't see very well, and so if I were to come play with this hive at night, it wouldn't work out well for me. Yeah, it wouldn't work out well. And it wouldn't work out well for the bees because I'm letting all the heat out in the middle of the night.
True.
Yeah. And all the bees that are out foraging right now, all these bees that you see flying around, they're gonna all be inside the box, so there's gonna be more crowded too. We're gonna smell like a campfire. If you want, you can use this, but try not to bother your brother, okay?
No more bees going to be at you.
And if you'd like to take a tour through the yard, we'll go and check out all the hives.
Sure.
A tour for what?
Down there?
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's check them all out.
The
Alright.
other hive?
Yeah, keep walking.
You're fine.
extra. Don't waste it.
No, that's for the beehive. Mama's gonna be mad. Go follow her.
It smells like s'mores.
It smells like s'mores.
No, it smells like a fire. Well, let's have s'mores today. Let me spray it.
So usually I only spray a hive if I'm going to do work in it.
So don't spray it, boo boo.
Just hold it. Ow.
Kind of wild berry wine.
Oh, okay.
And so I reached out to some friends and then I got in touch with through referrals. Get a nice mansion like that, they get a little condo. They got flat right now.
That's funny.
Is there?
Constructive.
Yeah. Those are the pigeons.
And so right now we have 2 vacancies. So if
Oh.
anyone's looking for a new place, pretty cool.
Come on.
Sometimes we like to put them up their little grubby mitts and steal honey.
Oh.
So by elevating the hive like that, then their way in. And this is all because there's a screen bottom that the ants are kind of working through. That stuff, this is a lot of pollen and little bits of wax. And what I wanted to do is try to show you guys about the size of a pinhead, and it looks like a shiny rust. But like I mentioned, where's Waldo?
So all this stuff is.
It's just junk that falls through the little pieces of wax, mites, pieces of pollen. These are little chunks of pollen and stuff that just fell down. And instead of landing on the floor, they went through a screen and landed on this board. But that gives me a chance to see what's fallen through. You can see there's a wing. So there's parts of bees, and when bees die, then it kind of falls through.
So how are they just...
Smoker? And what makes the smoke?
So you can put anything that burns. Some people put burlap. I put wood chips in there. And then it allows oxygen through the bottom, but it doesn't allow enough to let it catch on fire.
Okay.
So it just perpetually burns smoke, kind of like a chimney. Here's a varroa mite. So I'm going to outline it, and then I'll point at it with the corner of the tool.
It's a what?
It's a little varroa mite.
No, can you pour it away?
I know, it's bugging, huh? That little shiny guy right there by the edge of my tool. You see that little rusty thing? That little dot? Right there.
Yeah.
Tip my tool.
Is,
That is what is causing us so many problems in
Getting
in the
tired.
bees?
the bee world. That little dot right there
My hand is getting
is
tired.
causing this collapse syndrome where beehives collapse. It's a major contributor. It's not the only contributor to hive collapse,
Can
but
I
it's
put this back?
a major one.
Is it kind of like the parasite or?
It's a parasite, and it's like a tick, and it's just like a tick that bites a human. It burrows in and it infects the bee with a virus that makes its wings deformed, so it can't fly and forage and help the colony.
So then,
You're only going to occasionally see a bee come and go, but you can see it has like a little observation window, and that's kind of how the frames look on the
you
inside.
want to see him?
So it's pretty interesting
Both
little
of the
device.
bees go in different hives.
They do sometimes. They call it drift. So sometimes they'll.
Okay. We're good?
This is up to 20. Yeah, 20 or.
Now we're doing the bee's life experience.
That's the one in the shade?
How about now we're experiencing the bee's life?
Okay, yeah, that's right. Let's do 2 versions here again. Please, and go.
Now we're experiencing a bee's life. Now we're doing the bee's life experience.